How are you, man?
Man, I'm so good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
You're doing great. I'm so glad to hear it.
Thank you.
So let's jump right into the show.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
What's our topic?
Today's topic is going to be how to be free of obsessive thinking.
Wow. Do you really want to be?
I do. I want some peace. I want to be able to sleep.
Well, let me play devil's advocate with you. Maybe somebody would say to you, okay, I have some trouble sleeping, but I really need to think about a lot of this stuff because I need to make a plan. And I need to keep making sure I'm aware of that plan. Is that obsessive or not?
I would say that's obsessive. I mean, once you have a plan, set aside some time with it, and the plan is done, and I think you'll be better off if you're rested to take action and execute on that plan than up all night ruminating over it, rethinking it, doing it, running worst case scenarios or plan B, C, and D. I think you'd be better off with just creating a plan, committing to it, being flexible if things change, and getting your rest.
Okay, well, you don't strike me as a guy that's ever had trouble with this obsessive thinking, have you?
I have, and it's like, this topic was asked by members for us to talk about this on the show because a lot of our community, they say they struggle with it and they cannot shut it off. And it's worry and anxiety about, things that are going to happen that they think might happen in the future, or being obsessed with something that they can't change that happened in the past. So with me personally, I have struggled with it. A whole lot less now, though, because of the daily rituals that we've talked about in other podcasts. But yeah, man, it's been a big deal for me. What about you?
Oh yeah, I've been an obsessive thinker for a long time, and it took me a long time to figure out a way around it. And I think the big revelation for me was realizing that no matter how much I worried or thought about it, it didn't change anything.
Right.
As you say, once you put the plan in effect, then you have to take steps to make sure that you're carrying out your plan. And then if circumstances change where those steps become outmoded or obsolete or redundant, then you change the plan. So for me, obsessive thinking had to do more with just over and over blaming myself, blaming my parents, blaming my wife,
right.
whatever my mind could come up with. Once I got into meditation, that pretty much stopped. I mean, I had to develop a routine pattern for it. It doesn't stop immediately, but meditation makes you much more able to control those monkey thoughts and focus you more on the space between the thoughts.
Right, right. And it doesn't seem like there is space there, but once you become aware, there's a lot of space there.
There is space there, and it's such a great place to be, just for a few minutes. So one of the things I was going to suggest is that, first of all, can you control what it is that you're thinking about? Can you control the circumstance that is bugging you? And if you can, then map out the solution to it. If you can't, what's the solution? There isn't one. If you cannot control it, you've just got to let it go. And people who are control types, most of us, A-type people who are successful in life, are used to controlling things. And that's a very hard thing to do, is just to say, let the gods handle it.
Right.
That's just not comfortable.
Right.
You don't do that in your personal life. But if you want to have inner peace, that's your first step. Question one, is there something I can do to affect the outcome? If the answer is no, you got to let it go and practice a way of doing that. And then secondly, if there is something that I can do, what are the proper steps to do it? And if you don't know, you can get help professionally. I'm not talking about a therapist, but I'm talking about a financial planner, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever, to figure out some steps. That would be the beginning of it, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think those steps are right on point, and I actually utilize those steps all the time. What are some of the things that you in the past have obsessed about?
Oh, it's money, relationships either with colleagues that I felt were, being unfair to me, or me thinking that I was being insulted when I wasn't. It's the thing, you go back to the 4 agreements where a lot of obsessive thinking comes from a breach of one of the four agreements, usually involving presumptions. You're
Right.
presuming that things are happening and they're not happening at all.
Exactly.
And if you could keep that rule, one of the four agreements, which is not to presume,
Mhm.
you're way ahead of the game. So I think money is another one of those things. You can look at a budget and decide, am I within it or without it?
Right.
Do I have the cash or do I not? Am I too much in debt? And if so, how do I get out of it? There's always solutions. I mean, I don't believe there's a single problem in the world, any problem right now, that is not been considered and solved 50 million times before. And so if the problem is something that you're going through that there's a solution on earth for, learn about how that happened.
Right.
Learn about how that solution worked.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. For me, I guess at times on a minor level that there's been some kind of obsessive thinking about money. But after I went through those two kind of financial setbacks or challenges, years ago, I've just kind of been like, I'm gonna work as hard as I can. I'm gonna try to be smart about it. And whatever shows up financially, that's what shows up financially. I know that I gave my best. I think I would have a hard time and be really overwhelmed with overthinking it or being obsessive about the thinking if I felt that I didn't do what I could to produce a different result. So for me, it's in the doing, it's not so much in the thinking. So for example, if I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna pay, my expenses for the upcoming month, but I'm on social media, most of the time instead of looking for other job opportunities, or I am champagning and campaigning, and happy houring, and, all that stuff, instead of doing the things that I could be doing to be more productive, whether that's, taking my education to the next level, whether it's formal education, in college, or whether it's learning a new skill on the internet, about like video editing, or learning a new craft by interning somewhere. If I'm doing those things and taking action, then I find that the thinking is minimal for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not doing those things, that's where it really just kind of shows up for me.
I know that some people have talked about obsessing about things that occur in relationships, and that's another area like debt or finances in general that people overthink a lot about. I think the best rule for dealing with relationship issues when there's a problem to avoid obsessive thinking is to, first of all, have a conversation, communicate with the person that is involved in upsetting you. And first decide if there's something that can be corrected, and otherwise, just let it go. I mean, for example, I was thinking the last time you and I were together, I left in a hurry. I had something to do, and I didn't say goodbye to you the way that I normally say goodbye to you. I didn't help you clean up. And I thought, this is really terrible of me. And I kind of obsessed about it. And the way to handle that would be to call you up and say, hey, Keith, I just blew it. I just walked out. I'm sorry. I really didn't want to do that, And so you'd have that conversation, and the obsession would end.
Well, you know what? It's probably a good thing you didn't call me, because I probably would have told you that's the end of our friendship. And that's our last show.
That would be the first time he said that.
Oh, right.
He's always yelling at me. Every time the camera goes off, he's always got things to say.
No, but seriously, if you would have called, first of all, I didn't even really notice it, but if you would have called, how do you think I would have reacted?
Oh, Rick, it's okay. No worries. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I figured you had something to do.
Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, I think you have, if it's a relationship or connection with someone else, I think you have a conversation with it, and don't presume, as you said, as with one of the four agreements, and then just kind of talk it out. And if there's something you need to apologize for it, then let it go. Regarding the things that I do are very similar to you when it comes to overthinking or obsessive thinking, and I don't do a lot of it anymore. And I just, like, here's the situation. I do my best to not ignore it, because, we don't want to deal with the tough stuff. So I try not to ignore it. Yeah. And I tell somebody about it so that they will help me not ignore it. And so when it comes to anything that's associated with financials with the business, I tell Amy about it. She's the bookkeeper, and so she makes sure that I'm on top of it. Have you ordered that yet? Have you done this yet? Amy doesn't say it like that. She's so sweet, but she reminds me about doing those things, so I don't avoid it, and so I don't think about it anymore. There's no obsessive thinking about it. And so, is there anything I can do about it? If there is, do it. If there's something I can't do about it, then I just let it go and I just rest calmly and peacefully in the knowing that it's going to be all right.
Yeah, that's a really great way to go about it, Keith. I think that's terrific. Keep in mind also that, the working unit of your life is this moment. And what you're doing when you're obsessing is you're basically forward thinking or backward thinking. If you're forward thinking and obsessing, it's anxiety. And if you're backward thinking and feeling bad, it's depression. You can't do anything about the future and you can't do anything about the past. So all you got is right here.
Right here.
Okay, so if I'm worried about debt, first question is, can I do anything about it? And then secondly, is the worst scenario that I'm envisioning, the catastrophe, is that here?
Right.
Is it right here? No, it's not here yet. It's not, maybe never will be here. So you need to avoid going down that rabbit hole where you're talking always about the future or trying to correct something that's impossible to correct. It's in the past.
From the past.
And you're ruining your present moment.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And, I think this is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll have you wrap it up, is I think the key, if it's the key with conquering or being free of obsessive thinking is to understand that the way to do it is by consistently, day to day, have a ritual, have a practice that you do so that you are on the other side of it and free of it. It's not something that you can practice when the biggest thing hits your life and you try to, apply meditation to it now, or you try to think positive thoughts. At that point, I think it's too late. That the ego, the ruminating mind, is just too strong for that. So you have to, little by little, get better at it. You want to run a marathon and you've never run before, you don't go out and do 26 miles.
That's right.
You start with a run for maybe a quarter of a mile if you've never run before, and then you build up from there. But you do it every single day. You're doing something diligently, consistently, that's going to help you develop the skill set, the ability to quiet the mind, to not think about things that you can't control either in the future or in the past, as Rick said. And I think that's a key. And so if I want to say, leave everybody with something, it's that one thing, to be consistent about it and do not let up. Make it part of your daily ritual.
Perfect. I don't think I can improve on that at all, or I don't think there's a summary that could be better than what you just said. I would just make two suggestions to you. This is, again, a repeat message from both of us, and that is the importance of meditation, exercise, and a healthy lifestyle. The reason why meditation is so good is because it will take you away from yourself. It will allow you to be peaceful with yourself. And as Keith said, you can't wait until a trauma hits you or a terrible circumstance to do it for the first time. You have to have that consistent ability to go in that place where you're calm and within yourself. We'll put in the show notes some places where you can get meditation tapes online.
Right.
And there's also an app for your iPhone and for your smartphones that you can use throughout the day to do mindfulness meditation. And remember, the initial inquiry when you find yourself going down that road is always, is this something that I can change or affect? And if so, map out a plan and then let it go. Or if this is something I can't change, there's no point in thinking anymore about it. You just have to let go and trust.
Right. And Rick mentioned meditation, and he also mentioned exercise. So I'll just kind of close out with the exercise piece. The exercise piece is really, really important, and I'm a proponent of the beginning of the day. Why the beginning of the day? Because you've woken up with those ruminating thoughts or that negative chatter or the problems or whatever you got to face and deal with or worried about that already happened or depressed about what already happened. So because you're already in that state, you want to shift your emotional, psychological, spiritual state as quickly as possible. And the tried and true method to do that is exercise. And if it's intense, even if a short burst of it, 5, 10, 20 minutes of it will make the biggest difference. It releases endorphins, it shifts how you see things, and it also, science has shown, it affects a protein in the brain called BDNF, which is brain-derived. You staying with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And that's a protein in the brain that helps you focus, It helps improve cognition, and it also reduces your chance of Alzheimer's. So exercise helps you do all that stuff, and you start to see something that was a big problem. You start to get some leverage on it, and you can start to see some solutions, and it's just a baby step. So if your debt seems insurmountable, then maybe part of your solution is, you know what? I'm gonna start going to Starbucks every day. And that's a little bit of income that you have to pay toward that debt. It may seem small, but you're gonna feel really accomplished that you're doing something about it, as opposed to being at the effect of the situation. So that's pretty much what I want to say.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Mornings, the nice thing about mornings too is that when your mind is clear before you've had any conflict, before you've let anybody down in your head, if that's how you think, before all of this cascading problems start showing up for you, there's a moment when you can just walk and do a walking meditation and just try to blank your mind and just focus on your breath and focus on one foot in front of the other and how it feels walking on the earth. I think that's something that you don't have to sit down cross-legged with your fingers touching and think blank thoughts. This is something that you can just do slowly, gradually, and ease into a walking meditation, and it's painless. Plus, the exercise, the meditation, all this stuff is not only wonderful, it's free.
It's so free.
It's free.
It's free. Yeah, all it costs you, it's not, I wouldn't say it costs you anything, it's just an investment of your time. So if you want to be free of obsessive thinking, there's something you can do about it.
Absolutely. Don't obsess.
Right.
Solve and let it go.
Exactly. Thanks, Rick.
Hey, I love you, buddy.
Great show, man. Thank you.